Hello everyone, and welcome back to Project Gamaron, my alien evolution series where we dive deep into the incredible history of a planet unlike any other. Today, we're continuing our journey through Gamaron's future animals, exploring the radio-organic epoch, a period that has completely reshaped life on the planet. This is the age of transformation, tectonic upheaval, and evolutionary explosions. Let's dive deep in and uncover the story of how Gamaron's ecosystem burst into complexity during this fascinating time. Alright, so the radio-organic epoch spans from 147 million years to 193 million years. This is a pivotal chapter in Gamaron's history, following the breakup of the supercontinent Tellereth from the previous Chloromorphian epoch. At this point, the rifting of Tellereth accelerates, creating new geographical features like the vast inland seas and towering mountain chains, along with deep ocean trenches. It's like Gamaron's entire surface is being reshaped, truly transformative. In the early part of this epoch, tectonic activity hits its peak. Massive land masses fragments further, creating smaller, isolated continents. This sets the stage for even more pronounced volcanic activity, along with the coastlines, bays, and archipelagos that didn't exist before. And it's not just about geography, these changes impact the climates too. Volcanic eruptions and shifting ocean currents leads to an increase in atmospheric oxygen. That's huge because it lays the groundwork for more complex life to emerge. Let's not forget the shallow marine environments forming around these breaking continents. These areas have become hotspots for aquatic life forms, making them perfect for biodiversity to flourish. Now, by about 170 million years into the epoch, ecosystems across Gamaron are ready for what's known as the Radian explosion. Think of it as Gamaron's version of the Cambrian explosion here on Earth. Before this, life in Gamaron seas were pretty basic, mostly vertebrate eels and invertebrate slugs. But then, with the more oxygen, new shallow seas, and all this tectonic activity, these organisms begin to evolve rapidly into a wide variety of species. In just a few million years, these changes led to an explosion of biodiversity. It's the first time in Gamaron's history that life diversifies this dramatically, with species filling all sorts of ecological niches. So yeah, the radio-organic epoch is defined by this explosion of life. It's where Gamaron moves from being a planet of relatively simple organisms to one teeming with complex ecosystems. Now that we set the stage for the radio-organic epoch, let's talk about what's to come during this transformative period. The evolutionary advancements here are nothing short of incredible, starting with the vertebrates. First up, the eel-like creatures. These simple swimmers evolve in leaps and bounds during the radio explosion. They are the ancestors of the future fishes, amphibians, and possibly even advanced vertebrates. We start seeing these creatures diversify because of all the new environments, like varied coastlines, inland seas, and shallow reefs. This leads to some fascinating evolutionary branches. Take the Radian eelkin, for example. Some of these eels evolve into predatory forms, with sharper teeth, enhanced agility, and stronger muscles for complex hunting strategies. And as they adapt, they start developing rudimentary fins to stay up while hunting, and chase prey with precision. In the nutrient-rich coastal waters, we see a branch emerge. Some eel develop primitive limbs, fins, like appendages that offer maneuverability and stability. Over time, these limbed eels evolve into fish-like creatures, complete with vertebrate columns and more sophisticated gills. These adaptations allow them to explore deeper into the ocean's environments and even back brackish shorelines. One of the biggest evolutionary leaps here is the development of jaws. This gives some eel-like creatures the ability to grab and tear prey, turning them into the first true predator vertebrates. These early hunters aren't just surviving, they're thriving. And it's just not the vertebrates evolving. Let's talk about the slugkin, the other dominant group from the previous epic. Originally soft bodies and slow moving, these invertebrates face new predation pressures and adapt in fascinating ways. Some evolve protective traits like hard shells to defend themselves in the increasingly diverse ecosystems. But not all slugs choose defense. Some goes on the offensive. A significant branch evolves into mobile predators with streamlined bodies and new feeding mechanism. Picture radio-like appendages similar to what gastropods use, but specialized for scraping and tearing. These slug predators become efficient hunters, preying on smaller invertebrates and some of the less mobile fish like vertebrates. We also see some changes in their reproductive strategies. Some slug can develop colonial structures, living in groups that defend territories and cooperate in food gathering. This social behavior hints at more complex organisms that will emerge in future epics. And then there's the big picture: symbiosis and ecosystem complexity. With vertebrates and invertebrates evolving rapidly, we see the intricate systems form between species. Symbiosis becomes a defining feature of these ecosystems. For instance, smaller clubs might attach themselves to larger creatures for protection, hitching rides while feeding on microorganisms from their hosts. It's mutualism at its early stages. We even see examples of cooperative feeding. Imagine schools of filter feeding eels working together to filter plankton from the waters, or a group of predatory slugs hunting as a team to corner and overwhelm prey. These cooperative strategies are revolutionary for the time. All of this, the diversification of life, the rise of predation, and development of symbiosis, sets the stage for even greater complexity in the epics to come. Alright, let's dive into the fascinating major species that dominate the radioorganic epic. We'll kick things off with the terrifying predator that redefines ocean life, the Duocephalosis aquaraptor. This creature, known as the aquaraptor, earns its title as the ocean's first apex predator. It evolves 4 flipper-like appendages that gives it exceptional agility and speed, perfect for making sharp turns and cutting through the water like a plane in the air. Its eyes are perched on stalks away from its 2 heads, and those heads, they're basically just protruding jaws lined with 5 sharp conical teeth on each. These teeth are designed to jab prey like spears, making the aquaraptor a deadly hunter. Its preferred targets include the marionette species and its relatives such as the hydra and the camouflaged hydra. Now let's talk about one of the marionette species that evolves to be a predator of itself. The Duopadus predatori, or predatory. This species is unique as the only marionettes to eat other animals. They typically hunt sleeping hydras, camouflage hydras, and other marionettes, but if food is scarce, they can fall back on plants like ground seaweeds or the stems of the padus. These creatures evolve 2 appendages with gripping pads on each to grab and eat their prey alive. The limbs are pointed enough to stab through the other marionettes, making them highly effective hunters. On top of that, their mouths shift forward for biting, and the eyes split into 3 for exceptional depth perception and vision. Next up is the predatory sister species, Tricolus subterrax, or the subterrax. Unlike their omnivorous relatives, these are strict herbivores. The key adaptation here is their limbs, which evolved into hooks for digging through the sediment and tunneling. This helps them hide from predators like the aquaraptor and even their own sister species. Then we have the Armadillos hydranus, a fascinating example of evolutionary armor. These herbivorous creatures transitioned from the thin-skinned swimmers to heavily armored ocean floor walkers. Their kitten-based armor, about 1.5 inches thick, protects them from predators like the Algaraptor. They evolve 6 legs for walking on the ocean floor, and retain the setae around their mouths. But these become thicker for ripping into the stems of the paddis and tearing leaves off seaweed. Interestingly, they share a distant ancestor with the Aquaraptor, evidenced by their similar body plans. Shifting to plants now, we start with Plantium and Posteria. Then Posteria is a sessile predator. Basically, this looks like a plant, but acts like an ambush predator. It blends in with fields of seaweed, waiting to snatch up unsuspecting marionettes and hydras. It's one of the first examples of camouflage used for hunting on Gamaron. Next, we have Thallium padis, or the padis. This plant evolved a tree-like structure to maximize exposure to sunlight. Its massive flat leaves reach upwards like a pad, and it has thick trunk to withstand strong ocean waves and protect itself against herbivores. The padis even produces a sap-like substance to transport nutrients throughout its body, another parallel to how trees function on Earth. Next is the Brownus padiphyta, or the padiphyta. It is a distant cousin of the padis. Instead of growing tall, it often evolves to float at the ocean surface, using a small air sac at the base of its leaves. These plants often hook together in groups, creating floating maps that drift with the ocean currents. And finally, we have Moveria plantae. This rare parasitic plant takes survival to a whole new level by feeding off other plants. It evolves from the padiphyta, but adapts to attach itself to the padis, feeding off its nutrient-rich sap. What's really interesting is how it moves. It uses its air sac to jet water out like a mini propulsion system, allowing it to travel between hosts. It's a brand new species emerging as the ecosystem becomes more established. These major species highlight the incredible diversity of life during this epoch, each with unique adaptations that shape the course of Gamaron's evolutionary history. In this episode, we've explored the radioorganic epoch, where the Radian explosion paved the way for rapid diversification of life and complex life forms. From the rise of apex predators like the Duocyphus alcorifer to the fascinating adaptations of plants like the Thallium padis and the Brownus padiphyta. This epoch has set the stage for the futures of Gamaron's biosphere. But this is just the beginning. In the next episode, we'll dive into the Florivian epoch, where the evolution of hydras and marionettes will thrive and the first ever land plants will begin to emerge, as an exciting new chapter in Gamaron's history awaits. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye!